For every dollar you spend driving traffic, a percentage of that potential revenue is silently lost to invisible walls. We're talking about the secret 40% tax that most companies pay, a tax that has nothing to do with price and everything to do with a single, fixable flaw in your system. It's the silent killer of conversion that's just operating in the background, and most businesses don't even know they're suffering from it. So today, we are going to drag this problem out into the light. We're going to make those invisible walls visible. We're going to name the flaw, diagnose it with precision, and hand you the blueprint to tear it all down, one frustrating, unnecessary click at a time.
This right here captures the core paradox that keeps marketers up at night. Think about it like this. Imagine you've spent months planning the perfect dinner party. You've got the best guests, the most amazing food, but when people show up, the path to the dining room is this winding maze with locked doors and confusing signs. That's exactly what's happening online. You can have the best product, the most competitive price, an ad campaign that drives millions of visitors to your site, and still see your revenue just fall short. The problem isn't the traffic, it's not the offer. The problem is the journey. It's all those small, almost unnoticeable obstacles, a confusing question here, an extra step there, that just bleed your funnel dry. And this loss, it's silent, it's steady, and yeah, it's happening on your site right now.
Okay, let's just focus on that number for a second because it is staggering. 40%. I really want you to let that sink in. Imagine taking nearly half of your entire marketing budget, walking outside, and just setting it on fire. That's basically what this tax is. It's a tax you pay, not to a government, but to inefficiency. It gets paid every single time a motivated customer has to stop, squint at their screen, and think, wait, what are they asking for here? It's paid on every confusing step, every unnecessary form field, every moment of doubt. But here's the crucial part, the really empowering part. Unlike any other tax, you have complete control over this one. You can systematically reduce it, and if you really focus, you can get it all the way down to zero.
So here's our roadmap to getting back that lost 40%. We're going to start by digging into where this hidden tax even comes from. Then we'll give our enemy a name, funnel friction. We'll even become psychologists for a bit, diving deep into why friction is so incredibly disruptive to the human brain. And then we'll switch from theory to practice, and I'll lay out the systematic process for hunting it down and eliminating it. It's this powerful 3-step diagnostic loop. And finally, we'll cover how to engineer an effortless path and really embrace the transformative power of removal.
Right, so to really get the solution, we have to understand the problem's context. This whole field of analysis, it didn't just pop up out of nowhere, it was actually born from a crisis. For years, the mantra in internet marketing was simple: get more traffic. More eyeballs, more clicks, more volume. But then something broke. The cost of that traffic, the price of a single click on an ad, it just started to spiral out of control. This was the CAC crisis. CAC, of course, standing for Customer Acquisition Cost. It got so expensive to get a new person to your website that just pouring more money into ads was like trying to fill a leaky bucket by opening a fire hydrant. The economics just didn't work anymore.
And this timeline here, it shows you exactly how that pressure forced a total change in strategy. In the early days of the web, it was a land grab, right? The winners were the ones who could just shout the loudest and drive the most volume. But by the mid-2010s, with that CAC crisis in full swing, that model was completely broken. Companies couldn't afford to ignore the leaks at the bottom of the funnel anymore. The focus had to shift from acquisition to efficiency, and this is where CRO, or conversion rate optimization, became absolutely essential. But it was a new kind of CRO. Thanks to tools that let us watch anonymized screen recordings of real users, we could finally get to micro-level optimization. We could literally see exactly where a user's mouse hesitated, where they rage-clicked in frustration. And it led to this radical realization. The biggest financial gains weren't in finding more customers, but in making it radically easier for the customers you already had. And that brings us to the enemy itself, because to fight it, you have to name it. And that enemy is funnel friction. Now, it's so important to understand that friction is rarely one single massive barrier. It's not some 10-foot wall. It's death by 1,000 cuts. It's the sum total of every tiny obstacle, every moment of confusion, and every single ounce of unnecessary effort you ask a user to go through. Think of it like a backpack. One little pebble is nothing, but then you add a pebble for a confusing button, another one for a slow-loading page, another for an unnecessary form field, and pretty soon that backpack becomes so heavy that the user's motivation just gets crushed, and they give up on the whole journey. Funnel friction actually comes in 2 distinct flavors. So on the left, you've got procedural friction. This is the physical work. It's purely mechanical. How many clicks to check out? How many fields are in this form? A classic example is a multi-page checkout process when a single page would have worked just fine. But on the right, you have the far more subtle and honestly more dangerous cognitive friction. This is the mental work you force a user to do. It's confusion, it's uncertainty, it's complex choices. An example? A button that just says submit instead of get my free ebook. The user has to literally stop and think, submit what? What happens next? It doesn't take more clicks, but it demands more thought. And as we're about to see, demanding thought is often way more costly to your business than demanding a click. So why is this friction so devastating? Why does one simple extra field on a form cause thousands of potential customers to just throw their hands up and leave? Well, the answer has nothing to do with technology and everything to do with deep, hardwired human psychology. You see, friction isn't just some design flaw. It's a direct attack on the fundamental operating system of the human brain. And to eliminate it, we first have to understand the vulnerabilities it so effectively exploits.
Okay, the first and most important principle here is cognitive load theory. The best way to think about this is that your brain's working memory is kind of like the RAM in your computer. It's incredibly powerful, sure, but it's also strictly finite. You only have so much processing power available at any given moment. Every time your website presents a user with a complex choice, or an unclear instruction, or an unexpected layout, you're forcing their brain to spend some of that precious mental budget. Asking them to choose between 15 different shipping options, for example, is a huge drain. So when the cognitive load gets too high, the brain's default defense mechanism just kicks in: abandonment. And it's not because the user is lazy. It's because their processor is overloaded and they instinctually close the tab to conserve energy.
Friction also weaponizes these other core principles of our psychology. First up, there's loss aversion. We are all hardwired to feel the pain of a loss way more than the pleasure of an equivalent gain. And every click, every form field is a micro cost. Users are paying with their time, their effort, their privacy. Second, this ties right into the subconscious effort versus reward calculation. At every single step, the user's brain is asking, is the effort of this next click worth the reward I think I'm going to get? The moment that answer is no, they're gone. And finally, this all aligns perfectly with Fogg's behavior model, which is a foundational concept in design. It says that for a behavior to happen, you need motivation, ability, and a prompt. A user might be super motivated to buy your product, and your buy now button is the prompt. But friction is a direct assault on their ability. By making the process hard, you are literally destroying their ability to give you money. So understanding the psychology is one thing, but how do we actually fix the problem? This is where we move from theory to a concrete system. And it's so important to get this. This isn't about guesswork. It's not about opinions in a marketing meeting or randomly changing a button color because someone read a blog post. No. Funnel friction analysis is a rigorous, repeatable, and data-driven diagnostic loop. You can think of it like a doctor's process. Observe the symptoms, diagnose the disease, and then prescribe the cure. And this slide right here perfectly illustrates the 3 stages of that loop. It always starts with step 1, map. This is where analysts become digital anthropologists. Using tools like session recordings, you watch real users move through your site. You're auditing their experience. Where do they hesitate? Where does their mouse wander in confusion? You identify every single point of friction. But here's where this process becomes incredibly powerful. Step 2, quantify. This isn't about feelings. It's about finance. You don't just say, this form is annoying. You say, this form is costing us exactly $10,000 a month in lost revenue. You attach a real dollar amount to the problem. And only then do you move to step 3, engineer a solution to remove that specific friction. Then the loop just repeats. It's a relentless cycle of improvement, always focused on the highest impact fixes first. So let's ask the question that gets right to the heart of that quantify step. This is what transforms the abstract idea of a bad user experience into a concrete business problem that gets a CEO's attention. We're not talking about making things nicer. We're talking about calculating the precise financial damage, down to the dollar, that a single, seemingly harmless form field is inflicting on your bottom line every single day. And this is how you do it. A friction scorecard like this one connects a specific design flaw directly to the balance sheet. You get these numbers by using analytics tools to measure the drop-off rate at each specific step of your funnel. Let's just walk through it. You see that when users get to the phone number field, boom, 5% of them abandon the process. Demanding a password with complex rules, one uppercase, one number, one symbol, that causes an 8% drop-off. And forcing users to create an account instead of offering a guest checkout, that's a massive point of friction, often causing a 10% drop-off or even more. all of a sudden your priorities are crystal clear. You don't fix what you feel is wrong. You attack the friction point that the data proves is costing you the most money first. In this case, that's the guest checkout issue, hands down.
Okay, so once you've mapped the journey and you've quantified the financial loss, you get to enter the most creative and, frankly, rewarding stage of the loop, engineering. This is where we move from diagnosis to treatment. And the goal is simple, it's singular, and it's almost poetic: to meticulously design a path of least resistance. The whole aim is to create an experience so smooth, so intuitive, that the user just glides towards the purchase without even noticing the steps along the way.
So what are the guiding principles of this engineering stage? Well, first you have to audit for thought. Go through every single field, every single choice, and ask one ruthless question. Is this information absolutely essential to complete this transaction right now? If the marketing team wants a "how did you hear about us" field, you gotta fight them. That's friction. If the answer is no, get rid of it. Second, engineer for context. This just means the system should do the work, not the user. Use smart defaults. Pre-select the most common shipping option. Use Google Maps to auto-populate an address from a zip code. Use social login so they don't have to create a new password. Every piece of work your system does is one less piece of work for the user. And third, and this one is crucial, sequence commitment. You have to build momentum. Ask for the easy stuff first, like an email address. Earn their trust, get them invested in the process before you ask for the high-friction information, like their credit card details at the very, very end.
This question right here is the mantra. It should be printed out and caped to the monitor of every single person on your team. It represents a profound and honestly a countercultural shift in the business mindset. The default impulse is always to add more features, more options, more value to make things better. But friction analysis proves that the path to more revenue isn't through addition, it's through subtraction. The goal isn't a better funnel, it's a radically easier one.
And that brings us to the single most important insight of this entire process, and it is profoundly counterintuitive. In a world obsessed with adding more, your greatest strategic victory will come from taking something away. The best design is often invisible. It's not some beautiful new button. It's the removal of an unnecessary field. It's the elimination of a confusing step. It's removing a barrier the user never even knew was there, precisely so they can glide effortlessly toward their goal. And this is the tragic disconnect. You can spend millions of dollars on advertising to convince a user your product is worth buying. You can build their motivation to a fever pitch. But all of that investment, all of that effort, can be instantly vaporized by a clunky, frustrating checkout process. They arrive at your digital doorstep, wallet in hand, literally wanting to give you money. But your own process makes it too difficult. The ultimate barrier is almost never a lack of desire. It's a lack of patience for a system that disrespects their time and their mental energy.
And so, we land here at the final, most important takeaway. It's time to stop thinking about marketing as pushing users through a series of gates. The goal is to create a powerful current that pulls them smoothly toward the value they were looking for in the first place. When you meticulously identify and remove every click, every field, and every moment of thought that isn't absolutely essential, you do more than just optimize a funnel. You create an experience that feels elegant, respectful, and satisfying. You make the journey itself effortless. And in today's economy, the easiest path always wins.